I'm Laura, I run Club Soda. And for any of you who don't know, Club Soda has been going 10 years this January. And I started Club Soda as a community of change, of people changing their drinking habits from cutting down, stopping a bit and quitting. Very quickly, people asked me about why there weren't better choices in pubs and bars. So we did some research and we launched that in 2015, where we identified there wasn't any really nice drinks to have, even if you did want nice drinks. And that's what set us on this journey. And what happened was, is in 2017, product started to appear, or wait a minute, there we are. Product started to appear on the market that did fill that gap. And so we started to do mindful drinking festivals. So we've done 10 mindful drinking festivals in the UK, and one very bonkers one during lockdown that was 4 days, 24 hours a day, covering everywhere from Australia to America online. It was completely mad, but also quite wonderful at that time. And then and we have continued to basically become advocates for choice. So wherever alcohol is sold, we want to make sure that there is choice for everyone. And so as part of that, we now run a tasting room in Covent Garden, which is an education space, both for the consumer and for the trade, to come and try before you buy alcohol-free drinks. And we've had a very fun week of it already. Had Channel 4 in filming all day yesterday. So this is a space for you guys as well. Now, I'm really aware that you all run different types of events and venues, and I've tried to cover all of those eventualities in this presentation. But I'm really, from theatres through to music venues, through to festivals, there is obviously slightly different ways in which you operate when it comes to drinks. And so I'm really happy to answer questions as we go along. If you think there's a bit that's relevant in the middle of this that you want to ask a question about, please put your hand up, unmute, ask a question. I'll keep an eye on the side chat questions as well. But I really want this to be as relevant to you as possible, but I realise there's quite a wide range of people on the call. So the data that you need to know is this, that this isn't about everybody going sober, although it might sound like it, because obviously middle-aged journalists love talking about how terribly healthy Gen Z people are and are quite bemused by this prospect. But actually, basically, drinking of alcohol is reducing globally. It is a reduction rather than everyone going alcohol-free, although the number of people going alcohol-free is increasing. And it's happening across all age groups, but the over 55s are still the biggest drinkers in the UK. So younger people drink the least. And it is continuing year on year. And I have seen data from the big global alcohol brands, and I've seen where they're projecting drinking to go over the next 10 years. And they are seeing it rapidly declining and continuing to decline over the next 10 years. And their data is pretty good, right? So you need to know this because it's got quite important implications for your bar sales anyway, which has always relied on the fact that alcohol has always been there. People always want it and they'll always come and find it. And manage to shove a whole bottle of wine down during an interval in the theatre if they can. That used to be me, so there we are. And the number of units consumed per week has also fallen. So younger people are drinking the least. So even if they are the biggest alcohol-free group, but they're also drinking the least. And I'm not a particularly big fan of units, but it is one way that we can measure drinking. So active moderation is happening everywhere. And there is some slightly conflicting data now. So CAM say that 74% of UK adults are actively moderating their drinking in some ways. They are talking about the ways that they are actively moderating it. Whereas DrinkAware, their latest monitor, which is slightly bigger in terms of its sample, says that's 90% of UK adults are trying to moderate their drinking in some way. But either way you look at it, it's quite a big jump. And there's a really weird piece of data in DrinkAware this year that shows a massive jump in young men not drinking. And I'm wondering if that might be an anomaly or whether that's something to do with a big gym culture having picked up. But we'll see that next year. But there are different ways in which people are moderating. Firstly, they're taking drink-free days during the week. And so weekdays are a big area for people not drinking. And they're avoiding alcohol on work nights. People are setting themselves limits or taking months off. But you'll see down on that list that people are also drinking lower strength alcoholic drinks. So looking at mid-strength drinks and drinking non-alcoholic substitutes. So there is a variety of different tactics that people are using. And I'll talk a bit more about how people are doing those in a bit. But for those of you that have got venues open during the week, where you might do things during the daytime, that's particularly important for you. You may notice that lots of corporates have now banned drinking at lunchtime. A strong correlation with sexual harassment and alcohol. And so there's a safety part to that. So depending on when you run things, there is also some things to think about in terms of how people might be drinking. It won't surprise you to know that physical wellness, mental healthness, and financial issues are partly behind people changing what they're drinking. People are spending a lot of money on health. They then don't want to not be able to go to the gym the following day if they have been drinking. And I think we've all now finally learned that alcohol and mental health don't mix. I think we've had to have young people teach us that. I'm a generation that was taught that if you were anxious, you should just drink more. But that's apparently not the way that it should work. And the motivations do shift across age groups. If you've got a younger audience, mental health is by far the biggest reason why they're not drinking. And there's a lot about behavior control and being very anxious about also being sexually inappropriate when you're under the influence of alcohol. Whereas older age group look at physical health, healthier liver and weight loss, a lot of type 2 diabetes in older age group as well, which also covers this. And I think we'll start to see appearing on here people taking the weight loss jab. And if you're taking the weight loss jab, your appetite for alcohol diminishes quite substantially, and for cake, which is rather unfortunate because I feel that cakes should still be high up in our priorities. But that doesn't mean that people aren't going out. And I think this is a really important thing to say. Young people are still the biggest visitors to the pub. But what's happening now is that people are focused a lot around more experience-based socializing. And for people who run your sort of events, I think that's really important. The other thing to say is that whilst the other thing that helps drive this trend is that whilst health is important, this trend wouldn't be sticking if it wasn't for the fact that alcohol-free drinks now taste good. So there's probably a whole load of you here who might remember Caliber, which was an alcohol-free beer launched in the 80s. Tasted like shit. And if you tried that, you'd never want to try another alcohol-free beer again. Well, now, you know, you've got things like Lucky Saint that people keep going back to, really good tasting drinks. So alongside the fact that people are drinking less, there are alternatives coming into the market that taste good, and that's what is keeping people in the category. Those are also lower sugar. So the alcohol-free drinks are not soft drinks dressed up as adult drinks. They are very different, and I'll talk to you about them a bit later. You will also see that experience is quite high up in the hierarchy. So when you go out to the pub, you don't want a pint of Coke from a hose. You want to have a drink that makes you feel socially included. And so while younger people are still going to the pub, they still want to spend money on a drink that they like and that will make them feel included. So it's really important that we see this as a holistic whole, and that there's still an audience there to service with the drinks offer that you might have at any type of event that you run. So we are moving away from booze-centered socializing. So basically, alcohol is no longer the star of the show. I never in a million years thought we'd be paying money to go and play darts like you do at Flight Club. I mean, it was always the free thing in a pub, right? So experiences are everything from, you know, theatre through to, you can go to Solve a Long Murder, She Wrote, right, in central London. I think that's fantastic. People are far more focused about either the food, the experience, the type of event, what you get to do in a space, and alcohol isn't the star of the show. And whilst these are not directly relevant to you, the fact that 30% of UK adults have now visited a dedicated competitive socialising venue like a ping pong place or a crazy golf or any of those things really shows that people's appetite for how they socialise and what they do with their evening is changing rapidly. And they want to do activity-led stuff. So while this talks about pubs and bars, I see theatre, I see music venues, I see all sorts of things that you might run, festivals, as being part of that, these immersive experiences. And then when people go to those things, they've got a number of moderation tactics. You may have started to hear the word zebra striping. It seems to have been picked up quite heavily now by the media, that people are alternating between an alcoholic and alcohol-free drink quite often, because now it used to be the advice that you should alternate between alcohol and water, but water was never felt very special. Now you can alternate between a lager and a lager. Just one happens to be alcoholic and one happens to be alcohol-free. The other is that people are dialing down the ABV of their drink. So you will see that there's a lot of new mid-strength beers on the market, around 3.5%. Lower ABV cocktails are also really popular right now. So people are having the same number of drinks, but having less strong ones. And people are also bookending, starting the evening with an alcohol-free and ending the evening with an alcohol-free. And again, I think that's also a really important thing to know, because you can increase dwell time of customers if you've got a good alcohol-free range. So if you have got an event that you want people to stay at for as long as possible, making sure you've got options for them to hydrate with and start with at the beginning. And I'm always very taken that Mitchell and Butler's, their second biggest selling drink is still a lime and soda, because drinkers come in and start with a pint of lime and soda. But they also now end their evenings, if they want to stay a bit longer, with an alcohol-free. So if people decide they want to stay, but they don't want to drink anymore, rather than going home because they don't want to drink anymore, they will stay and have another drink. So they would stay longer. Sorry, my formatting's gone off a little bit on this slide. But basically 44% of people would stay longer in a venue if they could have an alcohol-free version of the drink that they've been drinking as their last drink. And keeping people in the space before they zoom off, I think, is really important. I'm having a good formatting day today. Sorry, I hadn't noticed this one as well. 31% of UK adults have left a trade venue early because they've been disappointed by their low and no. So basically, this having poor low and no really does impact on the customer experience. So I have been to some very big music venues that may be in South London, where I've never brought a drink because there's no good alcohol free. It tells me all across the walls that alcohol free drinks are a rider that musicians ask for, but I've never paid for a drink in any of those because they've never had anything for me to drink. I don't get there early. I don't leave my seat in the interval, and I don't stay at the end for a drink at all, because there has been nothing to keep me in that space. And I already know that I'm probably not spending any money in that venue when I go there, because there isn't anything for me. It impacts on my experience. Everybody else has a drink around me apart from me. Although I probably don't go to the loo as often and I get to beat the queue. So that may be a plus side. Who knows? The other thing that I thought was really interesting to offer is that you would never go to a restaurant anymore without seeing vegetarian options, and a number of good vegetarian options. Yet, according to YouGov, only 7% of the UK population say that they are totally vegetarian. I think me and Gabby looked at this earlier, and I can't believe it's only 7%, right? But 16% of UK adults don't drink at all, yet 37% of menus are suitable for vegetarians, but only 18% of drinks menus have options for people who are not drinking. And I've, even before this trend really started, I always felt that we always forgot that there were people who don't drink for all sorts of reasons, and they've never really been thought about, because we always see alcohol as the money maker, when actually the margins in an alcohol-free drink are good, and getting people to drink something rather than not is really important. Just to give you some stats around that, the UK restaurant industry lose £800 million a year by not upgrading people from a tap water to something alcohol-free. Or something that they pay for. So when I go to South Bank, for example, for a concert, I only have their free tap water. I don't actually pay for anything, because they have got nothing for me to drink apart from fizzy pop, and I'm not interested in that. So to give you an idea that there is money being left on the table, even for you. Sorry if anyone's from South Bank, but I could name and shame lots of different venues, or at least where there's an opportunity being missed. It's not a shame, it's just opportunities being missed. So we just recently did some interviews with event organisers as well. So some of you may organise events in other people's venues. 61% of event organisers say that they've seen an increase in demand from their clients for alcohol-free. 50% of organisers see the range of drinks they offer as being really important for their diversity, equality and inclusion policies. 74% of event organisers want to prioritise low and no options. So they now ask venues about low and no options when they're booking for a corporate event or awards ceremony. And they think 1 in 4 of their attendees don't drink alcohol. And then those that do are sticking to a smaller number of drinks, which means once they finish those drinks, they are leaving your event early. And that corporate planners' alcohol budgets have begun to shrunk to reflect that. But it doesn't mean there's anything interesting on the menu to replace that. So still, it's mostly soft drinks. I am amazed at the number of times I turn up at an event and everyone gets a nice glass of wine on arrival, and I still get to go. I went to a wedding and it was still a glass of concentrated 30p carton of orange juice that I was offered while everyone else had champagne. Oh, God. And these are my friends. Have they not been listening to me at all? Obviously, it won't surprise you to know that beers are quite often now on the menu because they are on your wholesaler lists and there's a lot more of them available. There are a lot of events that still only offer water as an alcohol-free option, even though that's a legal requirement now for serving alcohol. So the mix that's on your menu isn't great, on the menu isn't great. But I do know that there are things that get in the way of that, and the venues can be quite reluctant, and the wholesalers still have a really poor list of products. So I do realise it can get really difficult for venues. Club Soda's goal is to try and solve that problem too, but they're all parts of the chain need to do their parts. The supply is a big part of that. Some people think the demand isn't there, but education is a big part of that people, don't know enough about what alcohol-free drinks they should be serving. The venues don't know enough about alcohol-free drinks they should be serving. And so nobody really knows where to go. Again, that's something that we hope to solve. But you don't have to dig very far to see that there are some practices that we have in the hospitality industry that do stop things being listed. So if anyone's been to an awards dinner, they're always offered on a 3-course meal and half a bottle of wine per person. I even went to the LGBT Awards, which gives out awards at that ceremony to people who do drug and alcohol recovery projects. But if you weren't drinking, you had to go to a separate bar and buy your own drink. Now, bearing in mind, if you're not drinking, that's already a poor experience. But if you might assume that most people in the room are looking to not drink too much as well, not having options on the table for them to moderate with means that they're more likely to drink more than they want, which may cause all sorts of issues at the event and actually isn't quite the experience that they were hoping for either. So it's always about remembering that, if you don't give people things to moderate with, then they don't moderate. They drink less, leave early, or they drink too much and spew in the toilets. And what we've done is not provided any choice for anyone to make a decision about how they want to moderate their drinking in that evening. Ordering forms list alcohol-free drinks just as a set number of units. So that they ask, often caterers ask you how much beer, how much wine do you want? And then how many units of alcohol-free do you want? Please, in brackets, be aware of waste. And they make you guess how many people don't want to drink in an evening, rather than realizing that if you have a really good alcohol-free option, more people may choose that. And so you can have less alcohol on your menu and everyone has a good experience, and you're not stuck with jugs of juice that you're actually serving nicer drinks. The other is that alcohol, when I speak to venues, and this happens a lot, they go, well, there's no more budget for alcohol free. It's the same budget, guys. It's just a different mix of drinks. And so I would always say, and I think I've got this on the next slide, 30% of your people in the room would look to drink alcohol free if you gave them a good option. They may alternate between alcohol and alcohol free, but 30% is a good rule of thumb, maybe slightly more in January. But it's not an extra, it's the same budget. It's just dial down your alcoholic drinks, put some more alcohol free in. And then alcohol-free options are often not included in sale or return deals, unlike alcohol, because it's always been based on pouring out a carton of orange juice into a jug rather than buying a bottle of alcohol-free wine or a bottle of beer that normally is much easier to do on sale or return. The other thing I notice is that bar and catering allocations at festivals in particular leave no space for alcohol-free. So, some of the big festival bars and event bars like Green King, You either have a route for an alcoholic bar and a number of spaces for alcoholic bars. So if somebody else like this alcohol-free bar down here applied to be at your festival, there isn't actually a way for them to apply to be an alcohol-free bar because they can't win your big bar contract and they're not food catering, so there's nowhere for them to apply. So lots of alcohol-free bars mobile alcohol-free bars that have popped up have been unable to go to events because they can't win an overall bar contract. And the other is that your bar contractor can do good alcohol free if you ask them, but nobody's ever asked them. So they decide what's needed and they often don't have enough allocation on. I had about 50 emails at the end of Glastonbury last year to say that Glastonbury had run out of alcohol free by the time they got to Sunday. And I get lots of people emailing me about all sorts of festivals about the fact that there was an alcohol-free beer, but nothing else on the alcohol bar. So it doesn't always have to be a separate bar, but there isn't. But organisers of events have never been prescriptive about what they expect to see on that bar, and I think that's something that you can do. So what can you put on bars? Well, first thing to say is yes, you may have seen the big brand extensions from Gordon's and Captain Morgan's and all of those from Diageo. I do know that some of you have spirit sponsors at your festivals. There is no reason anymore why a spirit sponsor cannot bring their alcohol-free SKU or bring an alcohol-free product with them. So I haven't been to a festival yet where there's been any alcohol-free cocktails that haven't been on a dedicated alcohol-free bar, yet there has been a spirit provider there. So it may be that brand extensions from Gordon's and that might be one option for you. And I'm not knocking them. They do win quite well in taste tests. But we have got lots of homegrown, pioneering brands that have been around a lot longer than those that have marketing budgets that are really pleased to work with festivals. So you've got things like Everleaf, which many of you may have seen, or Three Spirit, which is a mood enhancing spirit, make amazing cocktails. Or there are a number of brands that create mimics, which are really easy for a bartender that's operating a bar to be able to swap out an alcohol-free rum for an alcoholic rum for an alcohol-free rum to make exactly the same cocktail. So there are options available in spirits to be able, if you've got cocktails, to do that cocktail offer. You don't need to have created some new cocktails, or you could, provide an Everleaf spritz. Just to let you know, we've just launched a range into Majestic of alcohol-free drinks. So if you work with Majestic Commercial, you can bring some of these brands on, including Everleaf and Three Spirit. So that's made it a little bit easier. Mood enhancing, particularly if you've got a particular evening event, is a big category. It's our biggest selling category in the shop. So these are drinks that have got natural ingredients in that elevate your mood or have functional ingredients. So Collider is a beer that has lion's mane mushroom in, for example, really popular. Three Spirit Livener does exactly what it says on the tin. It's got lots of natural sources of caffeine in them that give you a lift and lift your mood. Impossible Brew has got a social blend of ingredients in it that make you feel more relaxed and convivial. They go down really well. And, some of you can imagine that your events may actually suit quite well these brands. Again, these brands are looking to partner on things. So you can talk to them direct or, be prescriptive with your bars about what you would like to see in your mix behind the bar. Obviously, beer is the big category, and I have seen a lot more alcohol-free beer at events and in venues, without a doubt. But if you can get something on draft, it makes a massive difference to the consumer and actually is a lot easier to deliver at some events as well. And you'll see that Lucky Saint, Big Drop, Ghost Ship, they all come on draft. It doesn't just have to be Heineken Zero. And obviously Guinness Zero is a really big selling alcohol-free SKU at the moment, and they're starting to roll that out properly on draft. But depending on your event, there's different beers for different occasions. So Big Drop is a craft beer that happens to be alcohol-free and is really liked. Obviously, can format great for some events as well. Wines, not every event is good for wines, but certainly if you've got an event with food or you're delivering champagne at the start, you could look at some of these UK Zeno, which is a UK brand, or Moderato, which is a French brand. The quality of alcohol-free wines has improved immensely. And even if you don't do anything else, a sparkling wine is something that you should be able to offer. I will still have that with my meal over anything else. Another thing to just let you know, if I go back to beer, is once you take alcohol out of beer, it's one of the healthiest things that you can drink. It's not an ultra processed food. It's low in calorie. It's naturally sugar-free. It's rehydrating and full of vitamin B12. It's a really good thing, particularly if you've got a daytime event, for people to just be drinking to rehydrate. It's why the alcohol-free market, beer market in Spain is 16%, because people drink alcohol-free beer throughout the day in Spain. And certainly for people who don't want to drink soft drinks all day, this is an upgrade from a soft drink. People are definitely swapping from soft drinks to an alcohol-free beer. You could get Lucky Saint in the lunchtime meal deal in Sainsbury's and Tesco right now, for example. If you don't want a wine, then you could look, I've got Dry Dragon here, which is a sparkling tea. If you've got Muslim customers, a sparkling tea is actually a really good option as well, because sometimes people don't want things that once had alcohol in. And there are some very beautiful sparkling teas in a cork and cage bottle that absolutely look the part. CBD, again, and really good at daytime events, evening events, lots of young people drinking CBD products that are seen to be beneficial to mental health. Quite a few brands in this space that you could lean on, most in a can format, which is also really helpful. And then obviously some of you won't have glass at events. So looking at your RTD cocktails instead, or RTD wines that come in a different format. Again, there's a big difference between a mocktail, which is juices smashed together, and an alcohol-free cocktail that's lower in sugar, designed for an adult palate, designed for sipping rather than drinking in order to rehydrate. I could go on about this for ages, but you can come and speak to me and I can talk to you about your venue and look at how you might do things. I always take an RTD in my pocket to the theatre for the interval, because they can do the bag search, but they don't do a pocket search. So, you know, it may be that there are some formats that might be interesting to play around with. So what this all gets me to is this is all about a quality of experience. People are drinking less, but they still want an experience. They still want choices, and they want those choices to fit in with their health concerns. But working with venues can be difficult. So do assume that 30% of your audience would opt for a good alcohol-free option if one was available. I spend time doing head counts at events all the time. And I can tell you, if the alcohol-free option looks attractive, more people opt for it. So it's not just about those people who've come deciding not to drink, but those people who are pleased to be able to not drink if you've given them an alcohol-free option. And those people who tell me that they spend the whole evening nursing just one glass of wine because they don't want to drink very much, but they want something to hold in their hand, can actually have something that they want to drink and have more than one of, is amazing. All wholesalers do have a basic range of alcohol-free to choose from, even though they could do with some improving. So do spend some time looking at your catalogue and help me help them improve by letting them know that you expect to see better if you don't see what you like. You don't need more budget. It's the same budget, but a different mix of drinks. The alcohol content is irrelevant. Remind your caterers the margin is the same. And be clear about warm juice, bad mocktails, and cheap soda. They are just not acceptable. I cannot tell you how awful it is to arrive at an event where everyone else has been given a tray on arrival of sparkling wine. And then if you ask for something alcohol-free, which actually some people don't, I at least ask, but some people don't, they just refuse, and then walk in and don't have anything to drink. You're then sent to the other end of the room where there's a warm jug of orange juice that you can help yourself to. It is not the same experience. But what you can do is begin to exceed expectations. Make it part of your event publicity. I cannot underestimate how much the consumer has got such low expectations of what's available that if you're not drinking, choosing not to drink, or thinking you'll moderate, you will already go with the expectation that there isn't going to be anything for you. So you won't even look, you won't even ask. So if you can put it in your event publicity, it helps. And believe me, after our experience at the Live Awards, you need to put a lot in order for people to know, because you can say it as a lot, but people might not know it because their expectations are so low. Do signpost your alcohol-free options at the event, because if it looks like a wine, people will think it's alcoholic wine. So if you are wanting to make sure that there's alcohol-free, make sure that you label your alcoholic options, your alcohol-free options. They had a tray of both at this event, which I've got a picture of, so that people know the difference. Otherwise, people will pick up what they think looks like an alcohol-free drink in a tumbler, and that might not be the only thing that you've got for them. Match the serving style. So if you are serving a sparkling wine on arrival, then serve an alcohol-free sparkling wine or tea on arrival. If you have wine with the meal, serve an alcohol-free wine with the meal, or something similar. It doesn't have to be an alcohol-free wine in particular. It could be, again, a sparkling or still tea. If you're doing cocktails, make sure there are alcohol-free cocktails. If you've got alcohol-free beer, make sure there's alcohol-free beer. You, I believe that you should include, if you've got a bar, that you should include alcohol-free in that bar. But if you do have an option to separate out the alcohol-free to make it more visible and obvious, then you should do. And the same with any menus that you have. You will see that there's a dream from alcohol-free brands that at some point a menu will just have drinks and will say whether they're alcoholic or alcohol-free mixed together. But we're still not at that stage yet. People still need to be signposted because their expectations are so low. So when we did the live awards, you will see here that the right-hand side of this menu is bigger than the left-hand side. And that meant there was more non-alcoholic at this event than there was alcoholic. But I sat on a table with two other people who weren't drinking. And until I went and spoke to them after the meal, they did not realise that the alcohol-free wine in the bucket was alcohol-free. So they drank water all evening. Somebody went up, there was alcohol-free sparkling wine on arrival, but they didn't label it as alcohol-free. So people didn't know that it was there to pick up. I spent my whole time minesweeping people who were drinking water and saying, did you know there's an alcohol-free sparkling wine? The bar staff didn't know anything about the alcohol-free menu. So when somebody asked for alcohol-free, they sold somebody that evening, on an evening of free drinks, they sold somebody a cranberry juice. And that's partly because whilst Live Awards did a lot to let people know there was going to be drinks there, it wasn't easy for them to see where those were, and they weren't signposted by the venue or by the staff. So they still weren't visible enough. The venue did need some convincing, and that showed in their execution of that as well. They didn't really see why that was important, and the staff knowledge was poor. They hadn't been trained. My hope next year is that we might do a separate bar to make it look a bit more obvious, and then we can begin to normalise it for this awards ceremony. But it's really clear that every person I spoke to who wasn't drinking there that evening, who hadn't realised it was alcohol-free, they said to me it's because they never expect to have anything at these sorts of events. They always expect to drink water, and they hadn't even thought that there might actually be something for them. So that's just an indictment of how all of these things have happened in the past. So change your default settings, make it part of your event catering or festival bar contract. Even write into your contract to the bar that you want to see 25% of their stuff being alcohol-free and to have more than just a beer on there. Create standards about the visibility of that and let them know that you want to see it on the menus. If you've got, boards or menus or anything that the alcohol-free should be on it. I've been to lots of events where there's been an alcohol-free beer, but it's not been on the beer list, for example. Save a pitch for an alcohol-free only bar. There's a lot of people doing them now. I don't know why they do it. It seems to me like one of the hardest things ever. I've tried to do one last year. I'm happy to leave that to other people, but there are a few of them doing them and I can let you know who they are. Create an alcohol-free sponsors category if you've got sponsors, because there are brands there who want to be at your event, I can tell you. Add it into your event marketing. It's part of your choice, inclusivity, and also your safety offer. If I refer you back to the link between sexual harassment and alcohol is very high. Oh, and then there's a sentence that I haven't finished. Interesting. Shall we move on from that one? And then we can help. We can help you with your range selection. Come in and try some things. Learn about the category. You can come into the tasting room and make an appointment with me. We also do training for venues and bars and staff. And we have our own academy on Low and No. And I'm about to set some new dates for those. I'm going to do an event on the 17th of February, matching sponsors, people looking for alcohol-free sponsors to the brands that are looking to be in spaces and be in events. And if you email me, I can let you know more about that, and I'll share that with Gabby as well. On joinclubsoda.com/trade, we have some training videos that talk about why it makes financial sense to have good alcohol-free. And please share with me your good practice. I am really, really keen to share the things that are going really well. I don't want to make the assumption that you're all not doing things, because there is some great pockets there of stuff that's happening. And then you can always get hold of me at this email address. I really want to work out how I can support you.